Hello walkers, and welcome back to City Walks. Today, obviously, I think we are not going to be in the city, but that's okay because we're in another really cool, beautiful place here in Montana, and we're going to see some cool stuff. I'm going to start walking here in a second, but I want to tell you where we are. We're in bear country, as that sign says. You can barely make it out. We're at Joe Brown Trailhead. Between Yellowstone and Livingston. Oh, you hear some geese flying by up there. And we're across from, well, right at the head of Yankee Jim Canyon, which is down this way. And you can see it's a bit weathery today. We got a little bit of spring snow. That's pretty normal for around here. And I'm going to talk to you in just a second, but I want to show you one little thing that I found here. I mentioned it was bear country, and this is one of the things that they might like to eat, carcass. And I want to get walking here, but that's probably from roadkill, and the carcass gets dragged off the side of the road, hopefully. And there are a ton of elk down here in and around Yellowstone. Really cool creatures. Let me flip you around here real quick. 1, 2, 3. Well, 1, 2, 3. There we go. My name is Henry, and I will be your proxy walker today, your virtual travel guide, your co-discoverer, and I hope to discover a little bit of details here and there along this walk today. Thank you for joining me. I am back to talking while I walk, so I hope you enjoy that. If not, I do have some quieter ones, some less talking. I don't know the term for that. Right off the top of my head. But anyway, check out the website, City Walks Virtual Tours, for that. But let's get back to the walk, all right? 1, 2, 3, flipping you around. You can see the Joe Brown Trailhead sign is covered in snow. It's a wet spring snow. It's about 30 degrees Fahrenheit today, -1 Celsius, and about 10:45 in the morning. Got a little bit of a breeze. Here we're walking by some of this sagebrush. I love the kind of soft green of these. Something tridentata. What is that? It's related to wormwood. I want to say Artemisia tridentata. If you know, and let me know in the description below. We're just going to take a little bit of an amble here. I'll try not to talk too much, but I do have lots of thoughts that I like to get out onto these videos. Like and subscribe, all that fun stuff. But I mentioned, let me know in the comment section of the YouTube video. I'd love getting your comments, whether it's about an answer to a question I have, and we'll get away from this road here in a little bit, whether it's an answer to a question or a correction or additional information. I just love hearing from you guys. It's one of the joys of running this channel, and especially when you tell me you've shared it with your friends. That's a huge help, actually. And maybe how you're using these. Are you on a treadmill? Are you just enjoying them as background while you work, or just relaxation? Off to the right here, well, first of all, there's 89 South. That's a federal highway, not an interstate, but a 2-lane highway. Most of it is 70-mile-an-hour speed limit. You do want to be aware of wildlife. I showed you that leg earlier with the hoof. Had a friend that hit an elk earlier this year, or I guess late last year, and nearly totaled the car in terms of repairs. He was fine. Surprisingly, the elk survived, but was not going to live. So someone who has a special permit for that sort of thing came out and dispatched it, found it, dispatched it, and put it out of its misery. And the meat went out to various people that could use it. Look at this. Isn't that just a beautiful sight? The colors and the mist and the snow making all that contrast. Oh, I just love it. Yellowstone River down here comes largest undammed river in the continental United States, longest. I could take a little bit of an exception with that. There is a diversion dam way out east, eastern Montana, and I don't think you can really float a boat over that, and that would be my my criteria. But that's what they say. Almost did get dammed in the 60s, just south of Livingston. Luckily, that never went through. I think it was in the 60s or 70s. Oh, I mentioned Yankee Jim Canyon. I'm just going to come back here a little bit. So you can see how it gets narrow in there, and that funnels the water in. And in there is the biggest rapids on the Yellowstone during the summer. During runoff, things are different. And it's a fun run. It's like a class 3, maybe 4, depending on water levels, but not particularly challenging. I can row through it, so it's all right. It can't be that hard. But you do have to be careful and aware. Super fun. And then there's cliffs that people can jump off of into the water. Okay, so I mentioned bear country, and I will be keeping an eye out. One of the benefits of talking is that I'm less likely to surprise a bear, and they are surprisingly able to disappear in this kind of sagebrushy country. And they've just started coming out of their dens in Yellowstone, and they'll be mighty hungry, looking for things to eat, carcasses and bugs and anything they can find, really. Here's some elk scat, probably, maybe moose. It's pretty big. Anyway, I am carrying bear spray today. I'll often forget to bring it, and it's an easy thing to carry, easy thing to forget as well. But I remember today. So, highly unlikely that I would have to use it, especially this close to a road. But, you never know. Better to have it and not need it. Just playing with something here. One of my camera settings. So I mentioned the sagebrush in here. You can see big mature sagebrush bushes in here. And then you've got, I think that's a juniper, a couple pine trees. I'm not sure what kind of pine trees they are. You can also see it's littered with large boulders that have tumbled down from these outcroppings above. And you can also see, oh my gosh, look at this, how beautiful is this? The yellow tint to the rocks, which is appropriate for Yellowstone, or roche jaune, as I think the French trappers used to say. I don't know if you can hear that zun, zun sound. That is a car going over a cattle grate. And for those of you who may not know or new to the channel, a cattle grate is basically a pit covered with horizontal bars or logs or something. And the gaps between the logs are wide enough that livestock could get their legs trapped, so they can't cross them. But vehicles can. And that cattle grate is on the highway because they want to keep bison from wandering out into livestock country. Huge fear of brucellosis. Around here, it could be a huge economic impact, if that's the case. And one of the big fights about bison management is that. Oh, look how cool this is. What a winter wonderland. You can see we're climbing pretty quickly. Ooh. Another view back as I take a breather. Wow. Spectacular. Little ravine here. And we're gonna go up. I guess I should thank you guys for getting me out today. Absolutely beautiful to be out here. And not too cold. 30 degrees may seem cold, but it's not so bad. We're used to it. We're dressed appropriately. Well, almost appropriately. Gonna have to watch my footing in here. I don't normally like to film hiking uphill because you have to listen to me huff and puff. All right. Oh, let me look it up. Well, I don't have cell signal, but I guess we're close to 6,000 feet here in elevation. I'm hoping this will level out here. Oh, here we go. Nice little view upstream. There we go, a little break here. Pardon my sniffles. It was one of the first lessons I learned starting this channel. Edinburgh, Scotland. One of the first compliments I got was about, take a Kleenex. Which, the comment could have been a little nicer, but it was well taken. Super annoying, so I generally do, but climbing up that hill makes it a little harder to manage that sort of thing. Oh, isn't that beautiful? Just majestic. Seriously. So I believe we're kind of in the Absaroka range here, or Absaroka as I used to call it before I got clued in. And I think it's related somehow to the term Absalica, or Absalica, which is what the Crow people call themselves. I think the term Crow was a misinterpretation by Europeans of what they were referring to when they first contacted each other, as if it was a joint effort. Let's take a second here to see these mountains and the clouds with the snow. Blue sky trying to peek through. Alrighty. Wow, those geese calls, Canada goose calls, really carry. I believe if you right at where the river turns, to the left of that, kind of behind the little snow-dusted ridge there, I might be wrong. Well, somewhere down there is the bison holding facility. I mentioned brucellosis earlier and the desire to keep the bison from wandering out. Very controversial issue. Millions and millions of dollars being spent on it. And what they do is if the bison come out, which they often do from the park because they're really not a high altitude mountain species. You know, they're meant to be out on the plains. I think this specific species or subspecies. And so in the winter, when there's a lot of snow, some of them wander out looking for better pasturage. And so some come south, some go west. Some come north and go west. And if they can't be hazed back or sort of herded back into the park, then they will be captured and they'll be tested for brucellosis, technically for brucellosis exposure. So it's not if they have brucellosis, but if they've ever had it. It's called a seropositive test, SERO. And if they have been exposed, I think they're sent to slaughter. They can't be released. And because if brucellosis were to get into the cattle herd of Montana, it would require lots of testing because brucellosis in animals leads to something called undulant fever in humans. Pardon me. Well, let's see, some bluebirds, mountain bluebirds up ahead. I think they're going to be too small and far to see, but on the camera, but in my eye, really beautiful. Little treat. Anyway, however, it's a whole thing, and I encourage you to Google it and get some actual information from reputable sites, because it's kind of interesting controversy, and it's a big deal to the stakeholders, right? Not just the cattlemen or ranchers, but to people that want to see bison, free-roaming bison. Both of those have valid perspectives, in my opinion. Anyway. Some blue sky, just barely peeking through. A couple days ago, it got up to 70 up in Livingston here in March, which is not unheard of, but unusually pleasant. Usually I don't like these spring snowstorms. I'm ready for summer. I'm ready for full spring. But they sure are beautiful if you can get out of town. It's a wet, sticky snow. It's probably not going to stick around very long. But high up it will, and helps our snowpack, which is kind of our storage, water storage for the year. Big determinant for irrigation needs and fishing and wildfire and forests and all sorts of stuff depend on that in this ecosystem. The sniffle is a default reaction, and I have to consciously avoid it. Oh, look at the clouds and the mountains down there. Very cool. I'm getting a little warm climbing this hill. Normally I'd take my hat off, but I'm trying to record what I've been told is not binaural, but stereo, and I get their point. But binaural sounds cooler. And I've mounted two little microphones, wireless microphones above my ear, but they're attached to the hat. So if I take the hat off, I lose the microphones, or at least the placement. You can see, surely this little spot did get snow, and you can kind of hear, that's looking up, so we're underneath the little shelves of snow. And looking down, you can see more of it. But because this is south facing, it's getting more sun, heating up, and that snow is going away quickly. We've got a juniper tree right here. Sound of that highway really carries. I'm going to talk more about that here in a minute. But I'm going up, 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 up. Pardon my huffing and puffing. Come on. I was wrong about our altitude. Where we started was about 5,000, and now we're at 5,500, so probably not a 500-foot difference, but something like that. But you can see how far we have come up. I mean, I don't know if that's 500 feet, but it's, my lungs feel like it's 500 feet. Oh, look at that. All right, so right in there, it's a small herd of elk. Very cool. Oh, a ton of elk over here. So if you look to the left, you can see their little yellow butts. Big yellow butts. I'll try and remember to zoom in. Can do a junky. Let me see here. Come on. Oh, I was zoomed in this whole time. I was wondering why it wasn't so wide. Well, anyway, hopefully you can see them. And I'm gonna, oh, come on, Henry. There we go. That'll give us a better view for our walk. And I think this is a good point to turn around. And it's a good to see those things, those elk, because I was just talking about Highway 89. I was talking about the sound and the impact it has on wildlife, or I was going to. There's an organization called, relatively new organization, called Safe Passages, Yellowstone Safe Passages. And their mission is to try to, well, let me describe the problem first. The problem is that this highway is getting busier and busier and busier. More and more people are coming to Yellowstone. That's great. They should enjoy their parks that they own. But it's causing a lot more animal fatalities and property damage, and the insurance costs alone must be exorbitant. So they're started this organization, Yellowstone Safe Passages, and they're trying to mitigate that. And there are some ways to do that. You can reduce speeds, you can set up some sort of warning systems for animal crossings. You can build an underpass, sort of a tunnel for wildlife. You can also build overpasses. And so they're trying to get the process going and raise enough money to build at least one, if not two, overpasses for wildlife. And see, these highways, the interstates too, especially the interstates, really create a wall for wildlife. And it can have big impacts on migration patterns and population genetics, in fact. And they've done all sorts of studies, and I think Banff, Canada, National Park up in Canada, has done a great job of creating these overpasses. There's a couple of them down in Wyoming. There's a couple up in western Montana on the dropping the name of the reservation up there around Polson. But south of Polson, there's one or two of these overpasses. And they're really beneficial for wildlife. They reduce collisions, which reduce insurance costs and insurance premiums. And, that's a kind of a win-win. But they are expensive. So that is a cost. And, if, for instance, I've been thinking about, I drive to Bozeman, I think, where would a great overpass be? And honestly, if this overpass were built right next to my property, it's nice and fine when it's elk and moose and pronghorn antelope and deer and all porcupines and all sorts of fun animals like that. But when you've got wolves and bears and mountain lions coming across right next to your property and your pets and your livestock, I can imagine that might give you pause. No pun intended. Well, a little intended. Anyway, so that's another one of those issues that we deal with out west that you might not in places like Ohio or LA, although LA, there's been a lot of talk, or read a lot of articles about mountain lions down there. Certainly they've got a lot of interstates down there. But particularly for bears, grizzly bears, we've got these islands of grizzly bears and wolves that you get this island effect for genetic diversity. And if you don't have enough of a population, that can cause a genetic bottleneck and create kind of problems. Whereas if the bears can migrate, the young ones will typically disperse, is my understanding, and they will mix up the gene pool a little bit when they go somewhere else or something else comes in, which is a good thing if you like seeing grizzly bears and wolves and mountain lions. So anyway, that's kind of the issue, one of the issues around here. Love the depth that the clouds give to the mountains and the different tones. So the north side of that mountain over there, the snow is unmelted because it's cooler, and nice and khaki colored sage over on this side creates that stark delineation between ridges. The downside, of course, of this turning around and filming on the way back, you get a different perspective on the hike for sure. But we're also walking into the wind. Hopefully it's not playing too much havoc with the microphones and the audio. And the little spitting snowflakes that are coming down hopefully aren't accreting on the lens or the filter here. Still. If you decide to come to Yellowstone this summer, which I highly recommend, you can do some research with this is a shameless plug for my wife, Traveling Mel. She has a site called YellowstoneTrips.com, and she has all sorts of articles about how to plan your trip to Yellowstone, what to see, what to bring, packing lists. And if you're still overwhelmed with that, she'll actually do a coaching call with you. So check out YellowstoneTrips.com. Also be aware, the staffing levels are very much in flux right now with all the policy changes, which I'm not going to comment on. But the results I will comment on, in that there may or may not be the services that are usually there. So Grand Canyon, for instance, last couple months has had 3 or 4 hour waits to get in at the kiosks, and then I believe cut services once you do get in. I haven't heard anything like that for Yellowstone, but the roads aren't really open right now in Yellowstone. They're going to open up hopefully next week or so. No, sorry, mid-April for cars. Next week or so, a couple sections open up for riding your bike on the roads without tourist traffic. There's employee traffic, maintenance traffic, that sort of thing, but it's really light and very safe, if pretty chilly, to ride your bike in Yellowstone. And we've done that the last 3 or 4 years, and it's a lot of fun, a great way to get into the park. And you can ride an e-bike if you want to do that. That's legal in the park within, I think, class 1 and 3 e-bikes. So maybe I'll do a post or do a little video about that at some point. I said it was not too cold, fairly pleasant earlier. That was when I was walking with the wind. Now that my face is into the wind, it's a little chillier. Still nice. Could be worse. Can't believe I was walking along with that zoomed in the whole time. Oh well. I mentioned wolves earlier, another very controversial topic in this area, in the West in general. But I went to see a movie, a documentary at the local nonprofit theater, and called the Shane Center in Livingston, and it was called Molly's Pack, and it was about the wolf introduction into Yellowstone in 1996, I think. And the head of the Department of Interior at the time, Molly, can't remember her last name, and it was a really touching film about her efforts, and then she had some other issues that became tragic, but it was really cool to see some historic footage that had actually been lost of the introduction and hear about the process. Look at that site, Yankee Jim Canyon. I'm gonna end this walk right now. You can see our little parking area down there by the yellow sign, this side of the highway. The other side is a boat ramp, Yankee Jim or Joe Brown boat ramp. And that's, you can either take out before you get into the canyon and the whitewater, or you can put in to go do the whitewater. Anyway, I want to thank you guys for joining us. I'm not sure where I'm going to be next walk, but I hope you'll join me. Check out citywalksvirtualtours.com to search for other walking tours, etc. And you can search by location and walk time. Like and subscribe and all that fun stuff. But mainly, come back next time, and of course, as always, keep on stepping.